Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Jacobs. This is Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio. On the 20th of August, 2024, we're just getting started for the school year 2024-25, and I've got great guests for you today. We're going to talk about how AI is affecting professional development with Core Insights. That's with a Q, Q-O-R-E. It's linked here. CoreInsights.com. I've got the founders, Toni Shub and Anika Davis, here to tell us all about it. So welcome to the school year 2024-2025. We're here on Pre-K-12 Education Talk Radio. Okay, it's a pleasure to have you here and be back with you after a month's hiatus, and we're looking forward to having a great school year with you. Okay, I want to say we're going to archive the show over at ace-ed.org. That's the home website of our American Consortium for Equity in Education. We publish our magazine. We do the podcast. We have all kinds of information on site over at ace-ed.org, including our equity awards. And right now we're doing the industry side of it. And I think certainly I hope Core Insights and other companies, okay, that are listening, and if you're working with companies, nominate them, etc., go over to ace-ed.org. It's all explained over there for our equity awards. It's a fun project that we do. We love doing it. We love recognizing educators and people and companies that are involved in equity, etc. This is going to be an interesting show today, all about artificial intelligence. I'm going to bring Toni and Anika on right now, and we're going to go from there. I want to hear all about CoreInsights.com, and congratulations to the two of you on winning an SIIA award for Most Innovative Solution. Good morning, Toni. How are you? It's Larry here.
Good morning, Larry. Thanks for having us.
Are you kidding me? It's my pleasure. Where are you calling in from today, Toni?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
I've heard of that. How's the weather down there?
Humid.
It's North.
But nice and sunny.
It's North Carolina. I'm sorry, it's a stupid question.
Yes.
Of course it's going to be that way. Okay, it's summertime in North Carolina. Anika, how are you today? Larry here.
Doing well, Larry. Thank you for having us.
My pleasure indeed. And where are you calling in from?
Atlanta. And I will tell you that it is actually on a trend where it's actually supposed to be in the 80s, which you probably know is actually cool for us this time of year. So I will take what I can get. 87 is much better than 100. Not only that, but if you're 87 is much better than being 100 years old. So I'll take it all the way around on that sort of thing. You're absolutely right. I live in Maine, where it's overcast today and a little humid, but we're going to be in the 80s. And what can I tell you? That's warm for us. What can I say? Okay, but it's great to have you both here, and I want to talk about this in detail. And, well, first of all, let's get into you. Toni, what have you done? You're the CEO. You're the founder of Core Insights, but tell us your background a little bit, just so people can get to know you. And we'll do the same thing with you, Anika. But Toni, you go first.
Okay. Sure, absolutely. So I started my career as an occupational therapist, working in schools, and just really loved OT because it was so holistic, right? You could really look at all of the underlying reasons why a child might be struggling, right? And then target that. Around 2004, I thought, how can I take this information that I've learned so far and have greater impact? And I started dabbling in product development. And that's where I got my first patent on the Grotto Grip and then Ready Space Paper. And I happened to be really lucky, Larry. I was at this huge trade show, right? And so scared, nervous about it. And it happened to be between two huge hurricanes, so no one was there. They were supposed to be 20,000 people, but the vendors were there.
Well,
right? So I ended up meeting, at the time it was Midwest Vaco, now it's ACO, and I ended up licensing one of my products to them, became their early writing consultant, and developed a line that ended up in Walmart and Target, Mead Writing Fundamentals. So that was an amazing time and so fun. I then just kept working at it, started doing professional development all over the United States, and that was the impetus for the Classroom Education Fund, which we'll be talking about today.
Toni, it's amazing. It's good background. I love the fact
occupational therapy is so good, and I'm glad you were able to take that so much further. Anika, what about you? What's your background? You're the COO, Chief Operating Officer, and co-founder of Core Insights. Go ahead. What's your background?
Yeah. So I am born and raised in New York City. So when you talked about Maine, one of my sisters went to school in New England. So I definitely love that. And
where'd she go?
She actually Phillips Exeter Academy, right in Exeter, New Hampshire. So yeah,
that's where I raised my. That is where I raised my kids. We lived around the corner in Exeter, New Hampshire, for 20 years. Yeah, right around the corner from.
Small.
There you go. I know Exeter quite well. Okay, very well, as a matter of fact. Yeah, my kids.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So my path is a little bit different than Toni's. When I started off in my career, I actually anticipated being a medical doctor. And around my second semester in college, I took a psychology course, which changed my life and set me on the trajectory to become a psychologist. So I identify as an organizational psychologist, and I spent the last 25 years of my career in industry, in corporate America, serving organizations, helping them align their goals, their KPIs with their strategic objectives and initiatives. And so as COO, I just brought that over to this space. Toni and I met while we were working on our doctorates at Vanderbilt several years ago. And we had graduated, we finished, and, I have an organizational consulting work that I had done with folks. And she said, hey, Anika, can you dust that off and bring that on over to Core Insights? And we talked about what she was doing, what the team was working on, Larry, and I was absolutely hooked. And it just gives me an opportunity to pay it forward, helping students and teachers. I'm an adult learning specialist. So in this space that we work in, supporting teachers and educators, it's a direct transference, and I'm able to utilize and do what I love each day to support the team and our customers.
That's a great background, by the way, and I love the Exeter connection. Okay, and wow, it's just great stuff. I got to tell you. Yeah. So now I'm going to stay with you, Anika, if I may. All right. I wanted to know, I'm just swing back and forth between the two of you to be equal in this. We believe in equity here. I'm going to go equally with both of you. Okay. All right. So since you're here, Anika, we're going to go with that. Okay, Anika. All right. Tell me about Core Insights. You have something called the Classroom Education Plan, and again, you won the SIIA Innovation Showcase Award this year. But as I read your insight, this is going to be good insight for you. Okay? It was hard, and that's why I want you to explain this to me and our audience. It was hard for me to understand exactly what it is you guys do. And I'm going to ask it this way. Do you go into schools and classrooms and consult? Is this a software program? Is it a series of books or lectures? All these kind of things that it could be. But I understand the basics of what you're trying to do, the goal, but how is it presented? What is it? What do schools need to know? And that's basically the entire podcast. So you're going to start it there, Anika, and tell me, okay, what exactly it is, okay? Thank you.
Yeah, most definitely.
And Toni, if she messes up, you're there to back her up, okay? So don't worry about it.
That's it. How did you know, Larry, that was the plan? How did you must be reading our show notes back here, literally.
There you go.
So there is definitely a story. Toni shared about how she started off as an OT, and I think that it would be great for us to share that story. We can either do that, Larry, before or after we talk about the CEP and how we got to the CEP. So I think that it would be great for the audience to hear about what led us here. We heard a little. Yeah. So, Toni, do you want to kind of share that insight, and then I'll take it the rest of the way?
Yeah. Absolutely. So,
Toni, go ahead. And ladies, I just want you to know, just so you know this, we have 35 more minutes. So plan your time according, just so you know. Okay, go for it.
Wonderful. Thank you. You're not saying we're verbose or anything, are you, Larry?
I just want to make sure you make great use of the time. Okay, so go ahead.
He's talking to two academics.
He knows. Do the quick story.
The problem is to get involved in these side conversations, but I want to make sure people understand Core Insights and the time we have.
Exactly,
so,
for sure.
Yeah, so go ahead. Good. What is it? What is it? Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So as an OT, I would sit in these IEP meetings, right? And I would go in there and see this teacher sitting there and about 5-6 different professionals all reading their evaluations and each one would have like 30 recommendations. And the teacher would be like, how am I possibly going to do all of these recommendations for one child that got 20 other kids in the class, right? And so I started completely taking out any recommendations, and people were like, why don't you have any recommendations? And I said, because I need to talk to the teacher. I need to get some classroom context here, right? And so I would say to the teacher, if you could pick 3 things that either removes the barrier to learning or gives you back instructional time. Sometimes it's the child that's disrupting or interrupting or just, is taking more time. What would that be? Right? And I would tell you, Larry, 95% of the time, it was not what I would have recommended based on my, right? And so once I could go in and I could say, okay, these are your issues, then I could go back and look at the test scores, find the why to her problem, his or her problem, and then give a recommendation that was tailored to the classroom, and guess what? It worked, right? And then we had a relationship, and I thought, how can we do this at scale? And that's what gave birth to the classroom education plan. Anika, do you want to say how our decision intelligence program works?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So pivoting off of that idea, having IEPs, the CEP, the classroom education plan. So you'll hear us use the terminology CEP. So we'll try and stay jargon free here, Larry, as much as we can.
That's one thing the world needs is another acronym in education. Thank you.
Right? To figure out what it means, right?
You're welcome.
We were running short for a while, but thank God we have a new one. CEP, Classroom Education Plan. Yeah, I know.
Just in case anybody was on the lookout for one, here we go, right? So the Classroom Education Plan is CEP in its most basic form. It's AI-enabled, personalized, to the user, job-embedded professional learning.
Wow.
Right? And we're going to talk more about, PD versus PL and the semantics of, that terminology, all that good stuff. But in essence, what we're doing is teachers become the architects, Larry, of their own learning. And it's within the framework of addressing real-time problems with high impact, evidence-based solutions, which we know coming out of COVID that was not done. Is we just kind of threw a lot of different things at the wall, right, during COVID. But what perhaps wasn't done in many cases was that evidence-based solutions. And the CEP aligns with all research drivers of highly effective PD. So that's what it is. Now, let's talk about how it works, right? So the CEP, or Classroom Education Plan, collects real-time data, Larry, for every classroom through student and teacher surveys, as well as ELA and math benchmark data. The next thing that we want folks to know is that AI-driven recommendations within the CEP allows us to custom rank the most pressing needs in each classroom. So, for example, let's make this real time, Larry. If a teacher is focusing on math word problems, the CEP might suggest strategies like retrieval practice for cognitive skills, choice boards for differentiation, or learning games to boost engagement with the students. The next thing that happens once those strategies and those needs are identified, teachers spend just 2 to 3 minutes each week monitoring the effectiveness of the strategy in order to use this data and collaborate with other teachers in PLCs, teacher-based teams, whatever folks call it in their part of the world, Larry, to improve their practice. We want that collaboration. Oh, what are you doing in your class, Larry? Toni, what are you doing in your class? And we're talking about what we're seeing. And this is a simple ongoing process that helps teachers stay connected to what's going on to their classroom and pivot real time.
It's extremely interesting. I have to ask you, you said at the beginning it's based, obviously it's based on data because you said it's based on research. Okay, how I wrote this down as you said this. How is the data collected? Okay, it has somebody has to input data, which is I always wonder how they find some guy somewhere put my street on a GPS map. This little street in the middle of nowhere. Okay, somebody did that. Okay, and I'm always curious, who is that guy? All right, or lady. Right. Okay, so how's the data collected? Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things, and this isn't a unique identifier of the CEP, and we're most proud of, one of the things we're most proud of, we amplify teacher and student voice. So when we say data, we collect student voice, and that's through a student survey. So we're allowing students to speak into what they need in order to be successful at school. So we give them an opportunity. So students take surveys in our process. That student survey piece combines with the teachers. And that data that the teachers utilize and their voice, so to speak, comes from classroom observations as well as benchmark data. And the two meet up together to create this picture of what needs to be done within the classroom setting. So we're very proud of that because you can, we talk with a lot of folks. I know you've spoken with a lot of folks, Larry, and some folks have different opinions about, what the student's role and voice should be within the classroom, as well as that sometimes even of teachers. Some teachers, we're trying to promote teacher agency so that they have a voice on what happens, that they're part of this collaborative process.
It's to me, it's so interesting. And one of the challenges, and we always say this, okay, a lot of teaching is anecdotal. A teacher gets a feeling, they get to understand their kids. And, it's just, I don't know if that's Bill Maher sometimes says, I don't know how to prove it, but I know it's a fact. But that brings up a real challenge in education. And it's been that way for a long time. Teachers have good heart, okay? But we need data, okay? And that's one of the things that, if I may, I'll just, there was all this controversy about the science of reading and all that sort of thing. A lot of the way we taught reading over the last 50 years was anecdotal. We thought it worked, okay? By the way, it did, okay? So all of a sudden, somebody in the 1990s had data. Okay, nobody paid attention to it, but the point is they're paying attention to it now. COVID brought that out. Okay, and it's just it's amazing. Education has not used data like we should. Of course, we have neuroscience now and all that sort of thing, and now AI. Okay, and when you start using data. And I think this is key, what you're doing. It just makes the biggest difference in the world. We've got to make these changes, and they have to be based on something. And I love the way you guys are doing this. Okay, to me, it's very important. Okay, that was Anika, right? Anika, you just did all that, right? Okay, Toni, anything to add to that right now? Toni.
Yes, I think yes, absolutely, and I think the biggest thing is that we've been using data for a long time. Sometimes it's 2-year-old data where it's lagging. Sometimes it's student surveys from last year. Sometimes it's an exit ticket in one classroom from a student doing an assignment, but then the next classroom isn't doing the same thing. So what we really believe in is using real-time data. What is going on right now in your classroom from both that classroom context that you're talking about? What is the teacher seeing? How is the student experiencing the classroom? And then looking at that real-time data and then matching what the real issues are to the evidence-based solutions. Because we have no lack of evidence-based solutions out there. Hundreds of thousands of evidence-based solutions. Right? But if you go in and have an appendectomy for the stomach flu, that's not a good thing. Right? So if you're just grabbing at evidence-based solutions and you don't know what the problem is, those evidence-based solutions aren't going to work. Right? So that's what we're really doing. We're getting that classroom context data along with the standardized benchmark data and then zoning in to find out what are the biggest issues in the class and then matching it to the very best evidence-based solution that will really move the needle in that classroom.
And it's I'm going to use the word PD. We're going to talk about this in a second, but it's teacher-generated, if I may. I don't know how to say this properly. You can help me. Teacher-generated PD, AI-generated, to help the teacher. And I'm going to ask you the question every school district is going to ask you. As an administrator, I'm not one, but if I were an administrator, where do I fit into this? How do I manage it across different teachers in different classrooms? Or do I have anything to do with it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really glad you brought that up. So basically, the teacher has their dashboard, and they're working on their individual needs that they've chosen and their strategy, but there's roll-up data. So a coach or a team lead, let's say a grade band lead like K2, or a third grade lead, or a principal, or even a superintendent of a district can look and see at any time, what are the top 10 needs in my district? And they're updating in real time as teachers are using strategies and progress monitoring. And they can say what strategies are working and what kind of impact are they having. Oh, wow, this teacher used break into simple steps for word problems, and their class average went up 140%. That's a bright spot. Maybe we can see if that's working other places too.
Wow. Do you see it as school wide or district wide? I know you want it to be district wide. I phrased the question improperly. Okay, but when you're out there, I'm going to use the crass word, selling it to schools and districts. Do you see it school wide or district wide? How do you guys envision it? I mean, it's the best way to put it. Anika, I'll ask you. Anika, go for it. Yeah. Sorry.
It's both, right? Yeah. I mean, it's really both. We usually start in one school, right? To really, because there's a lot of alignment that goes on with the school, so it fits seamlessly into what they're already doing, fits into their PLC schedule, fits into how they're gathering how and when they're gathering their benchmark data. So we do usually start in one school, and then we expand, and of course there's benefits at each level. So at the classroom level, there's benefits just to the teacher, right? At the school level, there's benefits to the school administrator. They can go to school boards with this information and say, not only are my students improving academically, but look at the sense of belonging. That went way up.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you one thing.
We're really meeting their needs.
Yeah, and thank you for answering that. I'm going to get into this professional development versus professional learning thing with you, okay? You see a distinction between the two, professional development and professional learning, okay? And we throw those around as basically as the same term. At least I always do. But you two do not see it that way. You see development and learning as different things. There's a difference between the two. Which of you would like to answer that question, Toni or Anika?
Yeah, Toni.
Toni, you're on.
Sure.
I feel like Ken Jennings on Jeopardy. You're on, Toni. Good.
So
answer in the form of a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I even find myself interchanging between professional learning and professional development, and I think that the reason that we make a distinction and that a distinction is being made in the industry right now is just to have a new word to show that something new is happening, right? So when we look at what makes teacher development highly effective, meaning that instead of just checking off a box or getting PD hours, right, that it actually impacts student achievement and engagement, teacher engagement and retention, and school culture. So that's kind of where we're making the distinction, where professional development is very top down. It's sit and get. It's one size fits all. And often teachers are saying that, when they hear the word PD, it's like, oh, it's irrelevant. It doesn't apply.
Yeah, I call it the teacher eye roll. I call it the teacher eye roll. Here we go again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So we're making this distinction between professional learning, which is more teacher-led. It's tailored to their needs. Success is measured by impact and student outcomes. There's collaboration and continuous improvement cycles that are happening. And it's linked to the learning sciences, like we're talking about.
Yeah, and I Tim, what you just said made a lot of sense to me. It was a simple statement, but we have to link that professional learning to an actual outcome, and a lot of times that doesn't happen. Okay, not just say it worked, but actually prove it worked. Okay, provide data that makes it work, and too often, okay, it's either a one and done, okay, or it's just lost over the longer period of time. But if we have the data behind it, okay, that makes just makes it all make much more sense. And on that note, I have to ask you another question. I'm old, so I'm still trying to get my handle around it. Although I did see Terminator 3 and know it's going to bring about the end of the world. But let's talk about artificial intelligence, AI. Okay, how are you using that? This is an AI-enabled, personalized, professional learning system, the classroom education plan. Okay, again, Core Insights, it's linked here. Okay, what is that? I'm not asking this to be funny. I know it sounds stupid. What's the AI got to do with it? And because I think people are listening, are going, oh, this is great, blah, blah. But what does AI have to do with it? Okay, all right, who's on, Toni or Anika?
Yeah.
Toni?
Yeah,
Anika,
Toni, I'll kick us off if you don't mind. And
sure.
Just get us going. So first of all, a couple of things. AI is the new frontier. I think about we have a daughter that's 19, and when some days we're trying to explain the concept of the fax machine to her, and like the cell phone, and like what did you do before these things existed, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think this is like
I have to tell you something, okay? Last night, my wife and I are watching old episodes of that HBO show, The Wire, which was about Baltimore and the police and all that sort of thing. And there was a scene in it where one of the characters, who was on drugs, unfortunately, okay, was giving out, was selling newspapers standing on a traffic island. Okay, and his car stopped for a red light, he would sell the newspapers. People would put it out, give him a quarter. And he'd give him, and I looked at my wife, and she looked at me, and I said, remember when we used to do that? Okay, look, newspapers apparently exist anymore, let alone somebody, and it's only 20 years ago. This was in 2004 when the show was filmed. So when you say we're talking to people about what's a staple gun, all the things that we took for granted for years. Yeah, okay. What is this? What is this thing? A pencil? What is that? How does that work? Okay. It's so important to put it all in perspective. So that's what we're doing with a lot of teachers who have been teaching a long time. Put it, and I love the way you started it. I didn't mean to interrupt as long as I just did, but so now tell how the AI piece fits in. Go ahead.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry to interrupt. It just got me going. I'm just thinking about that. It's just weird.
No, I mean, but that's what we're talking about, Larry. That when we think backwards, for those of us who've been around the block a time or two, we think back to like what was life was like before, cell phones. Yeah. Like if you lost your friend in the mall, you had to go and they would mix it, across the radio, and Anika, come find Larry, meet him at their information desk, right? Remember those days? Yeah. It's the same thing like the payphone booth on the corner. AI is new, right? Generative AI, we're learning about it. So we're learning about what it can do and what its capabilities are. And as we embark on this, our goal at Core Insights is to make sure that we're using it responsibly and equitably, right? AI was created and developed by human beings, and regardless of, how amazing we think we are, we know that things like confirmation bias come into play. We know that we see things through our own lenses, right? And there are some things that need to be worked through, within generative AI and its implementation into any line of work. The thing that we do know about AI is that it is able to help us complete work in a fraction of the time. It's helped us to sort and arrange and collect and aggregate data, slice and dice it in so many different ways that will help us work more efficiently. And that's the main thing that we want to know. And why can't that same process be overlaid and brought over into education? We talk.
Has to be.
Yeah, Yeah, it has to be, right? Otherwise, we're going to be behind the times.
It has to
and
be.
when we look at medicine, and, Toni and I often talk with folks about decision support technology. Like she said, who wants an appendectomy when you're sneezing because you think you have a cold,
Exactly.
And by utilizing this, it helps us just kind of narrow in and focus in, okay, these are the reasons that it could be that we're experiencing this, rather than having this whole swath of data, 100 pieces of data. Folks have amazing dashboards now. Okay, well, how do those things work on classroom management if I'm having behavioral issues? It helps kind of remove some of the clutter so we can see the issue at hand and develop real solutions for that particular issue. Toni, anything you would add to that?
Yeah, I would just say we were doing AI before AI was cool.
Mm-hmm.
This is so AI is not just Gen AI, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we, like Anika said, we use decision support technology that's used in healthcare and has been used to save hundreds of thousands of lives by being able to take in multi-source data, not just the data of what the doctor's seeing, but what the patient is saying, what the X-ray says, what everything's saying, and then be able to say, okay, narrow in accurately on what the actual problem is, and then help the doctor match it to impactful solutions and then track the impact so we start knowing what works for who, when, and where. And as you get larger data sets, that's where machine learning comes in to really figure out what works for who and when. It could have to do with teacher years of experience. It could have to do with geographical location. It could have to do with whether, a child had preschool or not, or whether the teacher has a special ed background. We don't know.
Yeah, right.
Right, and so that's what we're trying to find out. Are we going to use generative AI? We plan to, but we want, as Anika said, when you just do it willy-nilly and you don't make sure those models are trained right and debiased as much as you can, right? You end up putting people at risk, right? And so we want to bring in Gen AI to develop rubrics to be, and to help with lesson plans and to even help with, creating strategic plans based on the data. And we do plan to do that, but we want to do it correctly.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great explanation. How long is that core? By the way, I have to say something. It's coreinsights.com, but it starts with a Q. And I have to thank you because I rarely use the Q on my keyboard. Okay, so it's easy for me to see the Q. Okay, what? Was that just a marketing little thing, or is there why the Q? QORE, like Qantas has no U after it. Okay, go ahead. Was it an acronym or is it just fun? There's a good question.
Well, it's kind of funny and doesn't really have to do with anything except that QI was chi, which is kind of that energy and that holistic view. And so we liked the QI for Core Insights.
Okay, good. I like it, like IQ. QI, IQ. Well, see, there you go.
Love it. I love the reframe, Larry.
Nobody
That's
uses
awesome.
a Q anymore. Nobody uses the Q except Qantas Airlines, so I'm on quack. So that's the only thing, So this is good. I had to ask that question. How long have you guys been doing this? How long has Core Insights been around, Anika?
Officially, as a company, November will be 4 years. But as you can see in our conversation and our backgrounds, this has been in the works for quite some time.
Oh, yeah.
And when we were working on our doctorates, Toni committed, as I worked on projects with her, this was something that she's been looking at even prior to our doctoral program. So this is like the culmination of life's work for both of us.
Absolutely.
And what does it look
wonderful.
like to help people thrive and shine in their unique roles. So,
And again, with your industry psychological background, I think it's fantastic. Okay, as well as it's just perfect. Okay, and I'm curious if it's been around 4 years, obviously, and you took it to SIIA. They're great measurers, and they won an award there. Okay, what are you hearing from schools? Okay, obviously you put it into schools. Okay, what are you hearing?
Yeah,
who wants to answer that one?
Who
wants to answer that one? Toni or Anika? Who is it?
Toni, I don't mind kicking us off. Okay, so I'll have to talk.
All right, Anika?
I mean,
Go ahead.
so there's so many wonderful stories that we can share.
Yeah, let's hear.
From the, wow, if this is the strategy that I didn't know that I needed in my life, right? That I was missing but couldn't ever quite put my finger on what it was that I needed. Or I was focusing my PD, on this specific area, but now I realize that is not it at all. We needed to be over here, and it helped us focus. It helped us save time. Like, for example, with our building administrators, we've heard from them, like now the team no longer comes to me. They are able to source exactly which strategy. And Toni and I make ourselves, along with our team, we make ourselves highly available to our customers. So if they call in, let's say they had a strategy that the CEP served up to them that talked about, fractions or something like that, but it's for some reason they have a couple of kids in the class that's just not, jiving with them. They're able to call in, and in one particular instance, we were able to provide a conflict resolution strategy which nailed it for the teacher. And the teacher's like, wow, I would have never thought that was the issue because I'm just so focused because, in education, we're just focused on the outcome. Raise student performance. Let's get to some of the underlying things. And even as Toni shared earlier, we had an administrator who said, oh, my gosh, and we did we do check-ins with our customers. And during one of our check-ins, she said, this is excellent. I have excellent timing as well. I have a meeting with the board tonight. I'm going to take this report that you just shared with me to my board so I can help them understand how we're tying PD directly back to tracking impact. It'll help the parents and all those, stakeholders and within their board understand exactly how they're using their dollars wisely. So that was really exciting for us to hear.
That's good. Boy, that is exciting to hear. Okay, and it's just it's so much fun to hear that kind of story. I have to ask this: we're winding down here. Oh, okay. And Lisa's a good friend of mine. Have you done your EdWeb session yet, or is it in the future?
Monday. As a matter of fact, Monday. We're doing our Ed webinar session on Monday. So shameless plug there. So today we're talking and focusing on professional learning with you. And this coming Monday, August 26th, so Larry, here's my commercial. We'd love everybody to join us for the urgent call for equitable data use in schools, shattering the blame game. That's this coming Monday, August 26th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can register, of course, on edweb.net.
It's free, everybody.
It's free. Completely free. We're going to be joined by one of our colleagues. She's an amazing instructional coach. She was in a leadership role in the D.C. area not too long ago. And so just understanding how we can use data, because in our world, Toni talked about continuous improvement. And for us, there's an ecosystem. We understand that there's an ecosystem that is just not professional learning, or PD as some call it. It's just not data. It's just not continuous improvement, And so what we're finding is we're really working to help educators bring all of these spinning plates together in a cohesive way so that they can achieve their goals and objectives. Yes. So that's Monday. So come join us for that, where we're going to be talking about that, making sure we're not utilizing data to sabotage when we're intending to help and support students.
Well, we lost a lot of ground in education by not using data. Okay? We have a tremendous amount of ground. It's going to take years to make that up. Okay? Years. And that's why this is so important. I'm so glad you guys are on the cutting edge. You've really thought this through. And I'm so glad I asked about your backgrounds, because the backgrounds you bring to this, is absolutely amazing. And I have to say, it goes even beyond education, into corporate training, et cetera. It's data that matters when you're dealing with people and how to use it. And neuroscience that matters. And we understand that. We're starting to understand it all now, and really use it. And I just think it's so important. So this, everybody, is CORE with a Q. CORE, it's linked here, COREinsights.com, And Toni and Anika, you two are just wonderful. Thank you so much for being here today. And I think I think Toni, you had to shuffle some things around to be here, and I'm so glad you did that. I appreciate it. Thank you, Toni.
Thank you so much for having us.
Well, you're more than welcome.
Thank you, Larry. Great to meet you.
Thank you. It's great to meet you too, and good luck with everything you're on. You are so on the right track here. It's unbelievable. Okay, so just keep it up.
Great.
Okay, thank you both.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
And have fun on EdWeb, by the way, on Monday. Okay, what fun that is. Okay, my good friend Lisa Schmucky over there who has built that company into a powerhouse. All right, and EdWeb is free, by the way. All right, edweb.net. We're going to archive the show over at ace-ed.org. Check out everything we do over there. All right, my name's Larry Jacobs, and that's Core Insights with a cool company and two fantastically, incredibly intelligent ladies. Okay, I'm Larry Jacobs. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.